Welcome to Immune Wisdom. I'm absolutely thrilled you're joining us today for this explainer because, honestly, what we're looking at feels a bit like science fiction, but it's entirely real. We are going to explore how we can literally use the hard science of brainwaves to hack our own memory capacity. I mean, think about that for a second. We all wish we could remember more, right? Retain information faster, recall it with perfect clarity when we really need it. Well, recent scientific discoveries are showing us that by understanding the electrical rhythms of our mind, we can actively optimize how our brains store information. We're going to break down the exact biological mechanisms, and then, best of all, I'm going to give you a highly specific, actionable routine so you can put this into practice today.
So here's our quick roadmap for this explainer. First, brain centers of memory. Second, the power of synchronization. Third, the unconscious brain at rest. And finally, your daily brainwave routine.
Okay, let's dive right into section 1, brain centers of memory, where memories live. Before we can hack the system, we really have to understand the hardware. We kind of tend to think of memories as floating around in some abstract cloud in our heads, but where do they actually physically live? To answer that, we've got to look deep inside the temporal lobe at this crucial structure called the hippocampus. Now, short-term information might just take a quick pause here, but make no mistake, the hippocampus is the ultimate gatekeeper for cementing your long-term memories. It's like the grand architect, taking all those fleeting experiences of your day and processing them into permanent storage, especially your memories about events and physical spaces. It even helps you orient yourself and process emotions. Basically, without this tiny seahorse-shaped structure doing its job, the whole pipeline from experiencing something to actually remembering it completely breaks down.
Moving on to section 2, the power of synchronization, locking into frequency. Knowing where the holding zone is, well, that's really just the first step. The big question is, how does our brain actually write information into this zone in the first place? How does the data get through the door? Take a really close look at this, because it beautifully maps out the secret language of your memory. When you're doing a working memory task, like, say, trying to remember a grocery list, we can actually measure the electrical activity from your neurons. And what we see is this amazing synchronized dance between two distinct areas. Up in the frontal lobe, you've got theta activity, those slower rolling waves you can see up top. Down in the medial temporal lobe, near our hippocampus, you've got gamma activity, those tight, fast, jagged spikes. For memory to actually work, these two distinct waves must synchronize. The peaks and valleys of the gamma waves have to perfectly align with the broader rhythm of the theta waves. In neuroscience, they call this exact synchronization phase amplitude coupling. It's literally two different brain regions locking into the exact same frequency to transfer data.
So here is the absolute crucial takeaway. The strength of that coupling directly relates to your performance. It's a one-to-one relationship. The more perfectly your frontal lobe's theta waves and your temporal lobe's gamma waves sync up, the more items you are going to successfully remember. If the sync is weak or messy, the info just drops out of your working memory. But if it's tightly locked in, your short-term recall is incredibly sharp. And this exact synchronization is exactly what we're going to hack a little later in this explainer.
Which brings us to section 3, the unconscious brain at rest, activity under anesthesia.
Before we get to the active hacking part, we need to shift gears for a second. We know what the brain does when it's actively trying to remember something. But what happens to this gatekeeper, our hippocampus, when we completely power down, fall asleep, or even lose consciousness entirely? This is where the science gets truly mind-bending. A recent research briefing published in the journal Nature looked precisely at this. They took incredibly detailed neural recordings directly from the hippocampus in human subjects who are completely unconscious, like heavily anesthetized. You'd probably expect that under heavy anesthesia, the memory center would just be completely dark and silent, right? Well, as the researchers so perfectly put it, the lights are out, but someone's home. The hippocampus remains shockingly active even when the conscious mind is entirely shut off. What's really wild is the specific type of activity they recorded. Even when you are completely out of it, your hippocampus is working overtime. Researchers played a series of auditory tones, and the unconscious brain actively responded to what they called oddballs, basically unexpected shifts in the audio pattern. But it goes way, way deeper than just hearing a sound. The unconscious hippocampus was actually found to be encoding complex, meaning-related properties of spoken language. It was literally predicting the upcoming words in a phrase it was hearing while the patient was entirely under anesthesia. Think about that. Your brain is an absolute sponge for auditory tones and complex data organization, even when you are totally powered down.
Now for the best part, section 4, your daily brainwave routine, binaural optimization. All right, let's connect all these dots. We know memory requires that tight synchronization between the frontal and temporal lobes. We also know that auditory tones can profoundly, directly influence our brain's memory centers, even slipping right past our conscious awareness. Because we know these biological facts, we absolutely don't have to leave our memory up to chance. Let's get into the coaching phase of this explainer and actually build your practical daily hacking routine. To optimize your memory retention, we're going to use specific auditory frequencies, known as binaural beats, to artificially trigger that phase-amplitude coupling we talked about earlier. We're breaking this into 3 distinct phases: your prep before studying, your active study session, and your final step right before sleep.
Okay, step 1. Right before you sit down to learn something difficult, you've got to warm up the engine. You're going to put on your headphones and listen to 40 Hz binaural beats for exactly 5 minutes. Why 40 Hz? Well, this specific frequency is designed to stimulate and warm up the prefrontal lobe. Think of it exactly like stretching before a sprint. You're waking up the very specific area of the brain that needs to start generating that crucial theta activity so it's primed, ready, and eager to sync.
Step 2. The moment you actually start reading, reviewing, or learning the material, you switch your audio over to 6 Hz binaural beats. And you're going to keep this playing during the entire active study session. Why 6 Hz? Because this is the exact frequency that maximizes that synchronization between the frontal lobe and the hippocampus. By artificially introducing this 6 Hz rhythm, you're essentially forcing those 2 brain regions to lock together. This dramatically increases your short-term storage capacity and ensures way more items actually stick in your working memory. Finally, step 3. This is where we leverage that incredible nature study we just talked about. Right before you go to sleep at night, you're going to listen to a slow, deep 1 Hz frequency for 15 minutes. Remember how we learned that the hippocampus actively processes auditory tones and organizes data even when you're unconscious? By feeding it a 1 Hz rhythm as you transition into sleep, you are providing the absolute ideal, deeply relaxed biological environment for the hippocampus to do its heaviest lifting. It's converting all that short-term data you synchronized earlier in the day into permanent long-term memories. It is just incredible how mechanical our biology can be when you really strip it down to its electrical rhythms. By using a 40 Hz warm-up, a 6 Hz active sync, and a 1 Hz deep storage phase, you are actively managing your brain's most complex machinery. Which really leaves us with a fascinating final thought to ponder. If we can drastically improve our memory retention just by feeding our unconscious brain simple, targeted auditory tones, what are the ultimate limits of human cognitive optimization? I mean, how much of our mind's potential is just sitting there, waiting for the right frequency to unlock it? I really hope this explainer has given you some powerful, practical tools to try out today. Keep learning, keep optimizing, and thank you so much for joining me on Immune Wisdom.